Destiny 3 has become a growing topic recently. I've noticed a lot more people these days asking and talking about it, so I wanted to make this video just to collect all the info we actually know about Destiny 3, as well as debunk some of the fake info going around that's confused quite a lot of people. This video is just going to be presenting the facts and info that we know, and then we'll do a bit of speculation and general thoughts after. So first things first, we should get out of the way some of those fake and made up rumors that's confusing people. One of the more popular ones came from an account called Shadow of Anon the 9, and in April 2019 they said the Season of Opulence would tease the Darkness enemies, which was not true. They then said the exotics Rose, Hawk Moon and Dark Drink would be coming, which also didn't happen. They said there'll be no Comet DLC in September 2019, and obviously Shadowkeep was announced just 2 months later in June. And they then said about Destiny 3 that Old Chicago, Europa and Venus would be the planets. The Pyramid is an endgame destination. We've got 12-man raids. There are Astro Demons called the Veil. So basically you can scrap all the info. This stuff is definitely not legit. Now moving on to a different account which we know is actually legit. This is the account called Anon the 9, the original leaker who actually has a lot of credibility. So for some context on why we can actually believe this account. So way back before Forsaken was even revealed, this account actually leaked a bunch of Forsaken details, but funnily enough, nobody believed him because they seemed too made up. So this is way before anyone knew Forsaken was a thing. This account was saying there's a Warlock super that shoots a laser beam from his hands, there's a Titan that's got a giant fire axe, which was actually a hammer of course, the Burning Maul, and the Hunter has a staff that it can use to block bullets. And nobody believed this stuff, which quite rightly so, it was very kind of wild statements, again before Forsaken was even revealed at all. So a while after that, of course, people then started to take this account seriously and believe they did have some inside information. So a while after Forsaken launch, he then made some posts saying that Festival of the Lost would return, as well as the Thunderlord from Destiny 1. And this was the leak that got a lot of attention because people knew from Forsaken this account was actually legit. Then when Thunderlord of course did arrive in the festival, everyone started asking him for more info and knew that this guy clearly has some kind of inside information and is actually credible. So then after that he started leaking some stuff about Black Armory, The Last Word, the Rose and Thorn, which again were all correct. And then of course it wasn't long before people started asking the big questions about Destiny 3, and this is where things get interesting. So for the list of things that he said about Destiny 3, firstly, there's going to be lots of hardcore RPG elements. He then said there's going to be Guardians using Darkness, which is pretty big. He then said open world PvP VE areas. People then started asking him about the planets in Destiny 3, and he said there's going to be 4 main planets at launch, all within the solar system. One of them is going to be the moon of Jupiter, we know very famously as Europa. He also said that Bungie had started development on Destiny 3 after Forsaken was released, and a smaller team was working on the seasons for Destiny 2, which also kind of sounds about right. But then not long after these posts, he then shut down all of his accounts, especially his Reddit one, and he said he won't be leaking anymore because Bungie asked him to stop apparently. So I do think it's very interesting how he's making all these Destiny 2 leaks, and the second he starts talking about Destiny 3, that's when Bungie took it a lot more seriously and actually contacted him. So that's a summary of all the leaks, the legit ones and the not legit ones. Again, Anon the 9 was the original leaker who posted this legit information, and then Shadow of Anon the 9 was someone that followed after, I guess trying to get the attention from the original account. So I think it's safe to say whoever Anon the 9 was, they definitely got their info from someone inside Bungie. Whoever was feeding him the info about Destiny 2 that came 100% true, obviously was feeding him the same info about Destiny 3. So either way, that is what was said. Now we can combine that with all the official stuff in-game, the hints that Bungie have given. We can get a clearer picture of what we'll be seeing in a game like Destiny 3. Now, as far as Destiny 2, in the past year, we've seen a lot more mention of the darkness and this whole choosing a side thing about the good and the light and this battle that's coming and the second collapse. These are all themes that have come a lot more recently from characters like the Drifter and Marasov and Callus and the Queen, and all these characters talking about this second collapse and the darkness is coming. So the Drifter has given his own accounts on him meeting the actual darkness on some kind of icy planet. He's encountered them and gave a bit of a description. Cade's journal from the Taken King also has drawings of these dark creatures that he's encountered and seen in visions as well. There was also the Collector's Edition book that came in Shadowkeep more recently, and that detailed a bunch of the scientists who had visions from the dark creatures and visions of these very strange beings that were watching them in their dreams. Very dark and creepy stuff. There's obviously this concept art of the Race 5 that came out a long time before Destiny 1 released, and even the official Bungie concept art of the collapse and the darkness consuming everything. In Forsaken, right before we popped Uldren, of course asked us what side we're on, and definitely made a distinction, kind of implying that we might not be on the good side and might not be all that. There was also that questline last summer where we were asked to pledge our allegiance to either the Drifter or the Vanguard. You could be a snitch or you could go with the Dredgen. Bungie even published the results of this in their blog post. They showed a statistic of who chose what side and how the results were, what percentages of people chose the Dredgen versus the Vanguard. The Queen and the Nine, of course, have talked many times about this great battle that's coming, and the Queen has said a side must be picked even if it's the wrong side. So again, choosing sides here. There's a very interesting lore card from the Dreaming City rocket launcher where Zer Ida, you might remember, the owner of the Wish Ender bow, and used to be a very close friend of Mara Sol, that she had a dream of Mara on a great black triangle and she splits it in two with her bare hands. She went on to say that in this dream, Mara was with another woman who was helping, who could be either Eris or Petra or maybe the emissary, and then also her brother Uljan shows up as well. So a very oddly specific dream of Mara destroying a pyramid, and as we know with the Awoken and their magic, these aren't just dreams, these end up being more like visions, basically predictions of the future. We also more recently got a cutscene of Osiris being very angry with Rasputin, and this is actually because he had a vision in the Infinite Forest of the city being consumed by the darkness around 20-30 years, he said, and the Guardians right now are making it faster, which is why he actually left the Infinite Forest and why the events of Season of Dawn happened, because he had a vision of the darkness taking over the city and the Traveler being replaced with a giant black monolith. Toland the Shattered has also been very clear about there being a second collapse that is going to happen, and all evidence saying that we're not going to survive and the darkness is definitely going to win. Not the most positive, but that's Toland for you, but he's definitely been very clear about the second collapse happening. Callus is another character who has evidently also met the darkness, and he's talked about power beyond our light that we don't even know about yet. So basically every character in the game that is smarter than us is telling us the second collapse is happening. Apparently there's nothing we can do about it, but it does seem like we are going to survive somehow, and it does seem like that answer is going to be by us partnering with the darkness itself. Now, as weird as it might sound, the darkness doesn't seem to want to just kill us. They said they want to be our salvation. They seem to want to partner with us and help us in some way. And pretty much everything I've been listing off in the past 5 minutes is along the lines of us maybe choosing the dark side. I remember one of Luke Smith's more famous quotes before Destiny 2's release. He was saying how Destiny 2 is all about the light, the Traveler, and being a Guardian. Destiny 2 is not going to feature the darkness, and they made it very clear about that. And they said that's because next they're going to talk about the darkness, and they do have a plan for it, i.e. Destiny 3, but of course Destiny 2 is not about that. So it does make sense from a trilogy standpoint for Destiny 1 to kind of set the scene, and they admit they didn't really have a plan for the darkness, whereas Destiny 2 is when they got this plan in place. Destiny 2 is all about the light, and Destiny 3 could be about the other side of this coin and the darkness and this whole side that we apparently haven't seen yet. And again, it kind of goes beyond speculation because Anon did tell us in plain English, Guardians using a darkness. So from that alone, we kind of know it is going to happen. The lore is telling us it's going to happen. Guardians are going to go to the dark side. We just don't know how. Now, of course, Destiny 2 has been set up to be a lot more long-term with the seasonal content, and some people even believe that there might not be a Destiny 3 and they might just stick with Destiny 2 forever. But of course, the thing to remember is that Bungie is going to want to have their own game that they publish along with their visions, and of course, it's going to mean a bunch more sales, a lot more than Eververse. But one thing's for certain, they did not spend hundreds of millions of dollars apparently to buy back their IP from Activision, only to keep Destiny 2 running in free-to-play forever. That is definitely not the plan. Something a lot of people don't realize is that Destiny 2 is a very, very large game. It's getting quite old and is currently the third largest game in the world, clocking in 165 gigabytes behind Modern Warfare and Red Dead Redemption 2. Bungie have said numerous times, they've admitted the game is at capacity. It can't fit much more on the disc and is really reaching its limit. We are currently past the point of Rise of Iron for Destiny 1, where they have to remove content in order to add new content. That is why we have a seasonal model. It's actually a pretty clever way of adding content and removing it, and it's kind of constant rotation and the game doesn't have to get bigger. So Bungie currently has to be very careful about what they add into the game. They have to be careful about the space and making sure it doesn't go overboard. If they do a big expansion this year, for example, in September, they're going to have to remove some big content. They have to make some room for it because, again, the game is 165 gigabytes. That is massive as far as video games go in 2020. There are quite a few stability issues. The consoles, of course, don't run that well right now. The loading screens are very long. There have been 2 hotfixes recently which broke the game and everyone's currency. Bungie had to manually reset the servers and roll back our characters to before the updates, which has never happened before ever in the history of Destiny. Obviously, this stuff is not ideal, but again, the game is 2.5 years old, running cross-save across 4 platforms, and it's gone through a lot of updates, a lot of changes, so it's understandable the game is definitely getting a bit bloated, and as what happens when games get a little bit old, it makes Bungie's job a lot harder as well, trying to fix and maintain it, when all these interactions are happening with all these different pieces of gear, all the potential perks and enemies and combinations of things and Telesto. They're making Bungie's job a lot harder, trying to maintain and keep this game running. So that's definitely not to say that it's all downhill from here and the game is about to break. I'm sure Bungie know what they're doing and how to fix and work through these issues, but technical limitations like these are why a game like Destiny 3 will need to happen eventually. Destiny 2 was not built like these PC MMO games that can last 10 years. I wouldn't be surprised if Destiny 3 is built that way, but Destiny 2 can't last forever. And again, we're already seeing the signs of it. Bungie have said the game is at capacity. They're having to remove things just to add new content. Now, something else that's also relevant in this conversation is the other game that Bungie is also working on, which is currently known as Matter. So this is their other game that's currently in very early development with a small team working on it, and Bungie said they want to be a multi-game studio and launch this by 2025, most likely well after Destiny 3 has come out. All we know is the project is called Matter, the same way that Destiny was originally called Project Tiger. It's probably not going to be the final name, but Matter is what we currently know. You can see the very colourful artwork that was also registered with it, but so far from what we know from the job listings at Bungie, they've said it's going to be a much more light-hearted, fun game aimed at a younger audience, which is very much different to Destiny, which of course targets an older demographic with the puzzles and social elements. You can see some Bungie developers with the multicolored designs on their profiles, like Chris Barrett, for example, is the game director of Redacted, which of course would be Matter, and the profile picture is very multicolored. And then you've got Luke Smith, for example, who is the director of Destiny at Bungie. Whenever Luke Smith is working on a new game, he always blacks out his social media until that game is announced. So you'll just see one day he'll change his profile picture to a big 3, and that's when you know they'll be ready to talk about Destiny 3. But until then, they're not going to say anything. Of course, they're always going to keep quiet until they announce it. But in the meantime, Destiny 2 is slowly building up to it. Very slowly, but it won't last forever, and it will eventually lead into the sequel with the pyramids arriving and that second collapse. As always, leave your thoughts down below in the comments. I want to know what you guys think and of all of this stuff. When do you think Destiny 3 is going to release? When do you think it's most likely? I think September 2021 would be the perfect window. Possibly 22 if they feel like the game could use more time. But again, that's the beauty of Bungie self-publishing. They can do whatever they want. If the game needs more time, they can do it. So either way, that is your big video for Destiny 3. Everything that we currently know in 2020. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, a like rating is much appreciated. And I'll see you all in the next one.